had two sons. The eldest was Arthur, and the second-born was Henry VIII. Arthur was given the throne when Henry VII died. However, Arthur died soon after, and Henry VIII took the throne. Henry VIII was a devout Catholic and strongly opposed Luther's ideas. For this, the Pope grants him the title Defender of the Faith.
Henry VIII had 6 wives: Catherine of Aragon, who he divorced; Anne Boleyn, who was beheaded; Jane Seymour, who became sick and died; Anne of Cleves, who was so ugly he divorced her; Catherine Howard, who was beheaded for cheating; and Catherine Parr, who outlived Henry. Catherine of Aragon was married to Henry VIII's brother. Arthur died soon after the marriage, so Henry married her to keep good relations with Spain. Henry and Catherine tried for a boy, but all she could give him was a girl, Mary the First.
What?
Henry fell for Catherine's lady-in-waiting, Anne Boleyn, who promised him a boy.
Upon Pope Clement VII's and Charles V's refusal to allow Henry to divorce Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII declares the Act of Supremacy, in which he creates the Anglican Church, makes himself the head of the church,
And I'm the head.
and grants himself a divorce.
And I'm now divorced.
Anne Boleyn was not able to keep her promise. Although they tried and tried, all she could give him was a girl, Elizabeth I. Henry was angered by this and accused her of cheating, so he had her executed. Jane Seymour was Anne Boleyn's lady-in-waiting. She was also the only wife that Henry truly loved. Jane has Henry bring his children Mary I and Elizabeth I back to live with them. She also gave Henry his son Edward VI. She had Henry make a provision that if Edward dies, Mary will become queen, and if Mary died, Elizabeth would become queen. However, Jane Seymour becomes sick and dies, and Henry becomes very depressed. His next wife was Anne of Cleves, a Russian princess.
I took a long trip from Mother Russia to see my husband.
My eyes, go away!
Upon meeting her, he said she looked like a horse, and he divorced her immediately.
You're so ugly.
His next wife, Catherine Howard, was an attractive young lady. However, she was crazy enough to cheat on the king, and she was beheaded. Henry is becoming very sick at this point, but he decides to marry Catherine Parr. But then he becomes very sick and dies, and she outlives him.
Edward VI, Jane Seymour's and Henry VIII's son, takes the throne of England next. He dies with no heir, so Henry VIII's and Catherine of Aragon's daughter, Mary I, takes the throne. Mary I dies, and Elizabeth I, Anne Boleyn's and Henry VIII's daughter, takes the throne.
A couple more interesting facts about Henry VIII is that he adored to play tennis with his mates. Henry VIII also wrote many books opposing Luther, including Luther is Stupid.